it is my honor to introduce our moderator for this roundtable discussion. He is an assistant professor at the University of Santo Tomas and is currently the director of the UST Research Center for Social Sciences and Education, also an associate member of the PSSC. He is also the executive director of the Institute for Migration and Development Issues and a member of the steering committee of the Philippine Migration Research Network. And we will also meet our eminent social scientist today. And friends and ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jeremaiah Opiniano.
Thank you, Miss Maya, fellow baby of the Commission of Population, because our mothers are from Popcom. So, bonjour, Madame Mose, bonjour. Bonjour. Thank you very much for coming here. Wag na lang pansinin yung parang may lubid dyan sa sombrero. Parang ano yan, ano? Pagka may sunog, gaganon yun, parang... Anyway, so I'm Jeremiah Opiniano. I'm from the journalism program of the University of Santo Tomas. Non-paying member of some of these associations of PSSC, but I'm a paid member in others. So thank you very much for coming here. This is a light day, and if you want proof on the 55th anniversary of the PSSC, you go outside, you look at the pictures of the chairs over there, and the very first chair of the PSSC is, of course, the legendary demographer Mercedes Concepcion. She started her term in 1968. So looking back, so 55 years. So that's the proof. And itudugtong na lang nila yung mga muka ng mga sumunod na chair ng Philippine Social Science Council. So at the same time, and if I may, of course, we're talking with eminent people. And one of them, I have to acknowledge the legend, historian, Dr. Bernardina Dita Churchill, ma'am. Of course. Bababa sana ako para magmano ba yan? Baka maubusan tayo ng oras. Ano po. Okay, so, but while they will be bringing their disciplines with them, let us think that this event is an act of undisciplining. I am borrowing that term from a Nature, Humanities and Social Science paper, wherein, that's very recent, wherein there's a problem, wherever you come from, let's talk about it. Without any disciplinary baggage that will just create a debate and it will go nowhere. So let us make this reflection something like an act of undisciplining in a way. And we're very privileged to have 4 social scientists with us. Alam ko po marami pong wala rito, and of course we acknowledge their immense contributions to social sciences in the Philippines. Not just I guess for 55 years, but even for a century, because some of our social science disciplines have been founded way back, even before the Philippines got annexed by the United States. So we continue with the history, and of course, we just came from a pandemic, so we continue the journey about the past, the present, and the future of our disciplines in this emerging economy called the Philippines. So allow me to introduce first our 4 distinguished social science panelists. The first one is a young professor and chair of the Department of Political Science of the University of the Philippines, where he has been a regular faculty member for 19 years. He's editor-in-chief of a journal called Asian Politics and Policy, a Scopus Index journal in the discipline of political science and international relations, published by Wiley-Blackwell and the United States-based Policy Studies Organization. He also serves in the editorial boards of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 journals, both local and international. In 2020, he was also named by the National Academy of Science and Technology of the Philippines as one of the 12 outstanding young scientists, or the OYS. Ladies and gentlemen, and I would like to invite him here, Dr. Aries Arugay. Our second panelist, of course, is, I guess she needs not much introduction because of her contributions to the social science discipline, both as an academic and as a practitioner. This statistician is Professor Emeritus of the School of Statistics of the University of the Philippines and the current Executive Director and Undersecretary of the Commission on Population Development, formerly known as the POPCOM, or the Commission on Population. She had served as Vice President for Planning and Finance of the University of the Philippines System, and being the first national statistician, and civil registrar general under the then young Philippine Statistics Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lisa Bersales. Our third panelist is a health social scientist and health policy advocate whose research projects, and she's a sociologist by the way, revolve around the following: cardiovascular diseases, malaria, tuberculosis, and asthma and allergies on the lives of communities, families, and individuals in the Philippines. She is the only, with stress on that word, only Filipino social science member of the World Health Organization's Technical Working Group on Social Science in Health Emergencies. She's also the only social scientist member in the newly created Scientific Advisory Group of Experts for Emerging and Re-emerging Infectious Diseases of the Department of Health's Interagency Technical Working Group on Regulatory Pathways for Genetically Modified Mosquitoes. And as a little footnote, of course, she is the proud daughter of a legendary social scientist, the rural sociologist, Dr. Helia Castillo. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nina Castillo-Carandang. And finally, our fourth panelist is full professor and university fellow of the School of Economics of De La Salle University. And why is he part of this panel? Because he's the current chair of the Social Sciences Division, Division 8 of the National Research Council of the Philippines. Like Dr. Arugay, he is also an OYS. He was recognized as a 2009 OYS in economics by the National Academy of Science and Technology. 3 years afterwards, he also received the 2012 Outstanding Scientific Paper Award from the NAST as well. He had served as president of the Philippine Economic Society a few years ago, and that was 2019. And of course, the champ in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lawrence Dacuycuy. So how we'll go about this? All of us, we were already handed out guide questions by the PSSC. Of course, I will not read all these 10. So what we'll do first, we will ask them to give opening statements. And then we will have a free-flowing discussion. Whatever they would like to say, given the guide questions that are written here, it's up to them. And then we'll just have a free-flowing discussion. Of course, the guide questions even written here are not complete. So definitely you also have some ideas on what you would like to ask. And then, after I guess 40 minutes of discussing, and like this is not a Boy Abunda show, by the way, but I guess that's the reason why I was put here by Dr. Portus. Afterwards, we will have open fora. So I suggest that if you have questions, you go straight into your questions, line up in those two microphones over there, and then let's have a hearty discussion, and hopefully we can end at around 4:15 or 4:30. So to the young people who are here, you're witnessing history. Okay, so who would like to start? Is it by the order of whom I called, or would you like this way or that way? O bato pick? Ano po ba ang gusto niya? Okay, so yung order na lang daw kanina, so we'll start with Dr. Arugay. Actually, naghanda sila para dito, so this is a discussion to savor. All right, Dr. Arugay, please.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. It's a distinct honor to be part of this panel and to somehow have a contribution to the anniversary activities of PSSC. I was telling earlier that I myself personally has benefited from the mission of PSSC in helping social scientists because I was a recipient of RAP, the Research Award Program, in 2003 that tremendously helped me finish my masteral thesis. And I think until now, RAP awardees were supposed to present. And I did my presentation in this exact auditorium 20 years ago. And then, may itutuhog ko rin po is that the chair of the PSSC, the council during that time, from the audience, after I made the presentation and after the program, waved at me and said that you need to have your thesis published in a journal that is within the family of journals of PSSC. And that social scientist, who is another influential social scientist in the country, is Dr. Emma Porio, who was a sociologist and yet approached a political scientist to contribute to the Philippine Sociological Review. So I think I'll start off with the message that while the Philippine social sciences have made tremendous contributions in the advancement of the respective disciplines, so political science has evolved so much within that 55 years. We're no longer just considered a preparatory course for law, no? And we try to tell our students that while we don't prevent you from doing so, but we open your minds to the multiple careers of someone who has studied Philippine politics. And I think apart from that is the openness to learn from other disciplines, and this idea of interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, as such, have already been there, I think. No? These are not just new, they might be new concepts, but the ideas and the philosophy behind continued conversations between the disciplines is something that I think PSSC has achieved in its 55 years. And finally, I think for my opening statements, we're getting somehow siguro yung present and future is that many young Filipinos wanted to study politics or at least be engaged in politics, despite the quality of politics that we have right now. They see that there's the importance of it. And I was reading the essays of Dr. Ronald Holmes, Dr. Olivia Kawili, Dr. Remigio Agpalo even, Dr. Athena Casambre, who made studies about the evolution of the of political science as a discipline. And the main challenge is really relevance to policy and the practice of politics. So I can say more about that, but I think this is the future of the field, is that how do we make social sciences, including political science, relevant to policy making, but also to public discourse, right? So we're not just there to influence X number of laws, but to somehow even change the way politics is being exercised, power is being exercised, and to build and rebuild institutions. So I think I'll stop.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Arugay. Let's now hear from the eminent statistician, Dr. Bersales.
Thank you very much. Happy anniversary, PSSC. I remember I was a new faculty member of the School of Statistics. It was called the Statistical Center then. And it was impressed on me that as a faculty member, I have to be involved in our professional societies. And we have the Philippine Statistical Association Incorporated. I was immediately signed on to be a member, and PSAI, being a member of the PSSC family, I was then also exposed to PSSC. You know, I have transitioned from statistics to the issue of population development, from a data producer to a data user, from data to policy making. And these are exciting times, and this is the right time to make a discussion of undisciplining. Because for me, what we have to discuss is this ambition natin 2040. We are really part of this movement to bring each and every Filipino to this life that each and every Filipino wants. And we have to come together and discuss how we will help our country bring our citizens at that point. What I would like to say here is that I am so happy that I was a student of Dr. Cristina Parel, who was a founder of PSSC. Also had the distinct honor of engaging with Dr. Dita's Concepcion. And these eminent women have actually touched my life as a social scientist and as one who feels for our country. We are in this place where we are seeing what we call demographic transition. we are now seeing that the population growth is slowing down. We are still growing as a country. We still have population growth, but it's slowing down. And so, working age population 15 to 64 is becoming a bulge. Our children of 14 and below will be less in our population pyramid, but we are nearing aging. And I was so surprised when I looked at initial population projections of the Philippine Statistics Authority, where we will reach an aging population as defined by UN by 2030. It's just around the corner. So we have to prepare for this kind of a situation where we have more of our older citizens. So we are now talking about the first dividend, where we have lower mortality, lower fertility. Second demographic dividend, human capital development, where our people are more healthy, more educated, and the PISA result worries me. Then we also have more of our older persons, but we are aiming for them to be active. Yes, and active in the economy. So we have retooling, reskilling. So we are promoting healthy and active aging. And what I see here, like the social, the sustainable development goals, so you have the three pillars, the social, the economic, and the environment, they are interlinked. So we as social scientists, we have an effect or an impact on issues on economic issues under the environment. And one study says that when we have human capital development, for every increase in a very productive labor force, we could have 2 percentage points increase of GDP growth. So that's so exciting, where we say that the social sciences actually affect the economy, and the environment is also an issue where we have to address. So exciting times are coming, and this discussion is very vital as well. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Bersales, thank you very much. Wow, right smack into the times for the Philippines, and that's the young people over there, part of that bulging population for this emerging economy. Let's now hear from Dr. Carandang.
Gandang hapon po. I'm Nina Castillo-Carandang from the Department of Clinical Epidemiology, College of Medicine, UP Manila. I am a historical artifact. Ever since the College of Medicine was founded, I'm the only social scientist with a tenured faculty position. I worked 32 years already, 16 years without compensation, and 16 years part-time. Finally, this year, I am again another historical artifact. I have a full-time position. Grabe ang journey. I said I had to share it with you, because that's how lonely it can be when you go outside of the disciplines that you are born with. So as Dr. Jeremiah shared, my nanay was a national scientist and a big friend of PSSC. Tita Dita's Concepcion is still very strong and still very active. And Ma'am Odette, I already told this, Dr. Gloria Feliciano was my ninang. So even before these institutions became institutions, they were part of our family conversations every day. My father was also a scientist. Like Dr. Churchill remembers them both very fondly. No? So I'm sharing these personal memories because your personal histories and biographies are part of what we are today. And let us keep on acknowledging them. And the social sciences in the Philippines continue to evolve and adapt to the ever-changing social, political, and economic and demographic transitions and landscapes. There are contemporary challenges which we need to reshape social policy and promote also social justice. So let me continue on with my remarks by saying that there are voices which need to be heard. Now is not the time to be silent. It's the Emerald Anniversary of the Philippine Social Science Council. But the Philippine Sociological Society, of which I am a member of the board, and my colleagues send their warmest regards to PSSC, is also celebrating its 70th year. The Philippine Social Science Sociological Review is also in its 70th year. And this week, we spent a lot of time debating as to a statement that we will put out and which we just released in behalf of PSS. Let me read the Filipino version shortly for you. Nasa na ang matagal nang pinangakong kapayapaan, katahimikan, at kasaganaan. Nais ipaabot ng Philippine Sociological Society ang aming pakikiramay sa mga pamilya at mahal sa buhay ng mga nasawi at ang aming mahigpit na yakap sa mga nasugatan at sa mga natroma sa mga naging saksi sa karahasan sa Marawi. Ang mga pamantasan tulad ng Mindanao State University ay kailangan panatiliin na kanlungan at sandigan ng mga mamamayan na nagnanais ng kapayapaan at tunay ng paggalang sa karapatang pangtao. Naway itigil na ang karahasan at bigyan ng hustisya ang mga naging biktima. Please look this up. It is in the Facebook page of the Philippine Sociological Society. And we might be red tagged again, as happened a few months ago when our Facebook page was taken down by Meta. And we had to fight for that. So the voices should continue to be heard, individually, collectively. Let us also remember our individual, personal, community, and social histories. Let me then continue on by talking dreams. And I'm quoting here from my late nanay. Is there a Filipino dream that the nation, that most of us still believe in? I don't know what dreams we have now collectively. That keeps us inspired towards realization as we try to emerge from typhoons. The huge earthquake the other day was so scary, floods and other calamities, whether natural or man-made. So do we still have a collective Filipino dream or dreams, as the case may be? The other part, so I started with voices, dreams. Let me now go to ethics. As my nanay said, ethics is ethics in the mind and in the heart. You know it from the top of your brains to the tip of your toes. So if you don't know it, you don't have it, but it doesn't mean you can't learn it. You can. And the challenge is for PSSC to have a robust, fully functional ethics review board, which is of world-class quality. I'm a member of the Research Ethics Board of the UP Manila, and we're probably the oldest research ethics board in the country. And I end here with equity. I have always believed that when the best science and scientists are devoted to the problems of those who have less in life, that is equity and ethics at its best. If science will serve a human purpose, what better human purpose is there? That ends my quote from Dr. Helia Tagumpay Castillo, speaking out from beyond this world, but reaching hopefully this generation and the next generation of social scientists. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. Carandang. Now you're seeing, at least from 3 of the 4, the Filipino character of social science in the Philippines. And finally, let's hear from the economist, Dr. Dacuycuy.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. Lawrence Dacuycuy from De La Salle University. So, happy anniversary, PSSC. I think the reason why PES is resurgent is because of PSSC. Yeah, I stand by that remark. PSSC is structured the way PES operated. And the biggest testament is standing right there, si Miguel. Okay, so thank you very much for guiding the journey of PES. When my background is mainly technical in nature, I deal with macro now. And then what I see is that, you know, we're transitioning to a very challenging period in our history. So there's this AI, machine learning, and all of that. And then obviously There are serious policy lags which I think need to be addressed. And the best persons to address the lag in understanding are the social scientists. If you've ever coded a machine learning algorithm, you will realize that there are a lot of things that are happening before it turns out results. And people don't understand what is actually happening. So social scientists need to be there in order to at least inform policymakers what matters the most. And I think for this country, I'm more convinced that, we must promote, or the PSSC must at least promote social mobility. It's distinct from inequality, from poverty, in the sense that it's broader, and then it's long-term, no? It's a long-term objective. And I've been looking at recent trends in the Philippines. I think there's no emphasis whatsoever on how we can improve the lives of people in the lower ranks of the income distribution towards towards better life, no? So that one is really important for the Filipino nation to at least achieve. Singapore's doing it. That's the reason why they are putting a lot of resources in educational mobility. In the Philippines, there's no mobility in education. Okay, so no. So and the second one is that, well, as an economist, I look into adjustments, and the reason why these are interesting times is that, we are beset by shocks that have permanent effects on the way we live our lives, on the way we decide on things that matter to us, on the way budgets are allocated, etc. It changes us. Okay, so we need social scientists again to inform the ordinary Filipino, how to adjust to these challenging times. It's because when I sit in the governing board of the NRCP, and usually my colleagues focus on the technical side, but there's this attempt, not by social scientists, those who belong to the 13 disciplines under PSSC, but those who belong to engineering, to hardcore sciences. So they have this natural inclination to insert social science issues, and I think that they really need the advice, the guidance of social scientists. So that is something that we need to promote. There's this interplay between technological advancements and social science understanding, deep social science understanding. That to me is important. It's because they're producing magnificent research, but we need to inform them as social scientists. So that's the only way for us to propel ourselves to better times. So, okay, so thank you.
All right, Dr. Dacuycuy, so you have heard four, wide-ranging but interrelated insights on the contribution of social sciences in the Philippines. So if you go back 1968, what was that? Pre-martial law, and then towards the 80s, then of course we have the democratic transitions. I think the Philippines is still a transitioning democracy. And then over the years, since 1986, we have gone through the course with several presidents, good points and bad points. Some social scientists have even become government officials. And many of them, whether from the social sector or the economic sector. And then, of course, we have just come from once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. So that's the journey. No? And then so far, what we have been hearing is the policy relevance of the social sciences vis-a-vis the situation with the Philippines as an emerging economy, a transitioning democracy. So if I may, siguro ang gawin natin, hahawak na sila agad ng microphone, tapos if you want to answer the question, you can just go right away. So parang ang tanong, in the past 55 years, and I'll probably start with Dr. Arugay, have the social scientists not done enough to reform the Philippine economy, politics, and society? If not enough, why not? And then what more are needed?
We have so many political science graduates who became politicians. In fact, we are encouraging our students to in fact run for office. Because if you don't, we also teach, they also realize that familiarity breeds contempt. The more they study politics, the more they seem to be like, ugh, I don't want to be like one. But the key, I think, and the reason why politics is the way it is right now is because the leaders that we elect are not really trained to be leaders that are attuned towards improving institutions and political practice, right? Despite the knowledge that's produced by political science on voting behavior, on leadership, on foreign policy, for example, corruption even, it seems like the knowledge is not bridging into practice and even political and social change. So I'm sure while we want to see ourselves as we have impact, but being self-reflexive also means accountability. That I don't want to be the one to throw away to throw a monkey wrench and disrupt the celebratory mood, but I think part of looking back and looking forward is the acknowledgement of the limitations. I can't put all the blame toward social scientists and academics, but it's so comfortable to be in the ivory tower sometimes. It's so comfortable to just cough out ISI, Web of Science, Scopus journals, and increase your H index, right? Universities try to tell us that this is the rat race, right? But increasingly, I think, and I can speak at least from the Department of Political Science, that extension and public service has become as important, if not increasingly more important than research, or research that turns into extension work, or something that is converted for improvement of public discourse. So for example, we have the UP sa Halalan initiative. Every elections, if you notice, many political scientists, called political analysts, appear on TV, not just myself, but others as well, and we get trolled, we get threatened with cyber libel, we get canceled by the woke generation. Some of us have been featured in SMNI programs and then trolled, right? So, but why do we keep doing this? Why? And if I'm outside UP campus, unfortunately, the university has not put up the mechanisms to protect social scientists who are at the forefront of public discourse. And I can say that because it's the truth. But why do we do this? Because we know that the problems are real. They're here, and if we don't speak up, as what ma'am said, if we don't let our voices heard, if we don't try to elevate, even if there's this wave of anti-intellectualism, right? Ano ngayon kung UP professor ka? Ano ngayon kung political scientist ka? Diba? Wala ka naman TikTok video, no? And but when you hear even the most notable of political scientists tell you, keep doing what you're doing, and we heard this when we visited former UP President Francisco Nemenzo, who said that, keep doing what you're doing. And even if we get trolled, we also get a lot of support. So what I mean is, the risks are there. It's better to just publish and, but we need to do this because at the end, impact is not just in knowledge generation, knowledge production, but in changing the way that the world works. And I think that's the uniqueness of the social sciences in acquiring that mission and that mandate is ever more important in this age of populism, disinformation, and anti-intellectualism.
Look at the way Dr. Arugay had ruffled feathers, huh? To jumpstart the discussion. Probably the others would like to jump on his insights. Dr. Carandang.
Can I just speak up on what Dr. Aries was saying? And I'm often asked, bakit gano'n, Nina? bakit yan ang binoboto natin? Bakit yan ang nananalo? And to borrow from my clinical colleagues, their method of diagnosis, my official diagnosis is that we have collective amnesia and motivated forgetting.
Medical na yan.
So, yan ang aking official diagnosis. That's my official diagnosis. My colleagues always laugh when I say that, especially the clinicians I work with. But that's exactly what we have. Collective amnesia and motivated forgetting. Ano pa ba ang ating hinahanap? Pero totoo yung sinasabi ni Dr. Aries, when you get involved in the public policy sphere, you should be ready to get shot, literally and figuratively. So during the pandemic, I was a member of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, NITAG, for the COVID-19 vaccine. I was the only social scientist, and our task was to allocate by priorities who should receive the limited COVID-19 vaccine available. And we decided it's the healthcare workers first because they are the most exposed. If we don't save our healthcare force, who's going to save us when we get sick? So we received a lot of flack. Bakit hindi ako una? Ako si Congressman X, ako si Senator X. Kung healthcare worker po kayo at patient-facing, categorize. If you're not patient-facing, baka pwede ka ng second category na. No? Kasi unahin na muna natin yung mga healthcare workers, the nurses, the staff who fought for us. The Philippine General Hospital, in case you don't know, actually was the COVID referral hospital for the Philippines, even if we are not a DOH hospital. So tayo lang po ang nag-volunteer. And every time they cut the UP budget, it hurts the PGH budget because a 4 to 30% of the UP budget goes to PGH. So ipaglaban po natin yan. Hindi lang dahil SUC ang binagsakan, pati po pasyente nagsasuffer every time we cut the PGH budget. Kaya nga po 32 years akong 16 without pay and 16 on part-time dahil nga sobrang misallocated ang resources natin. No? We should also acknowledge the support that we also receive from different sectors. Hindi naman ho lahat kaaway. Ang napansin ko po sa public officials, if you talk to them in private, it's better. Kausapin, usapang kaibigan, usapang colleague. They'll listen. But if you start going out on media, ayan, ayaw na nila niyan. Kasi they're put in a spot. So we should also choose how and when we talk to policymakers so that we don't antagonize them, so that we get their first ear. So yun po yung natutunan ko, working across sectors, working in the highest levels of government and out. And ang sabi ko lang po sa DOH noon, pro bono by the way yung work namin sa DOH, not a single centavo for very intensive work. I said I would never attend an IATF meeting again. I attended thrice. What a waste of time. Because pagpasok ng mga scientists, meron na palang desisyon yung mga politiko. So para saan pa? Window dressing lang. Kasi we consulted the scientists and this is what they said. And then another thing I said, I will not speak with the former presidential spokesperson. Especially when he said na, wag maging choosy sa bakuna. 2 weeks ago, we were called for a congressional hearing and I refused to go. It was the Committee on Public Safety and the Committee on Human Rights, not the Committee on Health. And they were trying to blame the bakuna for excess deaths. So I'm sure Dr. Bersales would have something to say about that. And sabi ko, sino po ang head ng mga committee na yan? So sinabi isang congressman namin from Laguna na showbiz, literally and figuratively. Tapos yung isang congressman from Manila who comes from a very conservative group. So sabi ko, why should I go? They aren't going to listen to a scientist. They want sound bites. So in-advise ko in DOH colleagues, please also have your showbiz sound bites ready. It's not the science anymore. What will catch the fancy of Facebook, TikTok, whatever, yon ang sound bites. So minsan po ang laban hindi na po science. It's the sound bites na, especially given the shorter attention span of people. I'm sorry to have to say this, but we're so much of a TikTok, Facebook generation that we don't know how to read and write much anymore or for long. So, hindi na, pag nakita mo yung soundbite, okay. O, then you assume, then move to the next page. Swipe to the left, swipe to the right. Hindi mo na binasa yung konteksto. So, context is always very important. As a social scientist practicing in another discipline entirely, I do not have social science language when I talk with my clinical colleagues. Because my objective is to communicate, not to add to confusion. So I don't have the theories of Marx or whoever you want to be, because that just turns them off and it doesn't really contribute to our shared goals. What are our shared goals? Improve quality of life for the Filipino people. That's all our shared goals, whichever discipline you come from. So we should be open to dropping the language and all the jargon and all the theories and reciting it like the Bible, because in the end we need to collaborate, we need to be transdisciplinary and forget that we come from different disciplines. We're all in this together, and we often forget that togetherness is the strength of the social sciences. Salamat po.
Wow, well said. So from the, pala kasi Aries lang, wow, idol. Pero teka muna, amid the hardships the social scientists face in influencing policy, were you surprised that the Philippine economy improved in the last 2 decades or so, even before COVID-19? So is there a sense, Dr. Dacuycuy, that, hey, the social scientists have made some success in that regard? Or is it because we Filipinos really work together and then we're a ballooning population, and in the day, if you remember, when there's a growing population, it's in the 70s, that's something that we have to be concerned about. Now, all of a sudden, it's the reverse. So, I don't know, with the surprises of the Philippines, and the Philippines suddenly, the Philippines is being joined into those acronyms. TIMP, Turkey, Indonesia, Mexico, the Philippines. Dati, it's BRICS. Pero, yung political institutions natin dysfunctional, pero umuunlad the economy. So how can you explain that?
Yeah. That's a difficult question, Jeremiah. So thank you for that. I think we need a longer conversation just to map out the necessary details. Before I go into that, I think there was a controversy before, and if you studied economics, even the most basic one, there was this government plan to set up a price ceiling, and then on rice, and then it's because it's consistent with the government target to reduce it down to 20 pesos, and then it divided the economies in the country. Some even received backlash for not supporting the government adequately by posting, critical analysis of what it should be rather than, compared to what was implemented. And that to me was something that is very surprising, because economists are usually trained to acknowledge the relevance of theories. And for us, it's not, when we first heard it, we said that that's bad economic policy. But then, based on what Dr. Carandang has mentioned, they already have the decision. They will just wait for some massive support so that they can implement it. Similar to the Maharlika, they decided to not to railroad it before it was implemented. They not pretended, but then they listened to what economists and financial experts have to say about that. But the policy was already set. And I think that's the political reality that we need to contend with. You have orthodoxy, you have correct way of analyzing, but then, you have the government, which is not only here, but then in other parts of the world, there's this policy that's already set. Now, I envy economists from other countries, of course, when they say that this is the right policy path, then they will be acknowledged. But then in here, the camp is always there's always division. Some will support and others will not. And then my hope is that, there must be venues in which the opposing camps will be enlightened, both of them. And I think that kind of rapprochement is what is needed. It's because there's always division when it comes, even the most well-designed or a well-designed policy, even if you deal with them, there's always divergence in terms of interpretation. Okay, so yeah, that's really weird before observing, even for a very basic economic policy, there's division, when in fact, even the students know. I polled my students before, what do you think? Oh, they're wrong. They said that if you impose a ceiling, then it means that you will create shortages. And then now going back to your question, it's complicated. I remember there was a time in the US, height of the pandemic, their stock market was rising. And so their stock market was rising. And then in the Philippines, of course, we started our journey towards normalcy recovery in 2022. And then, of course, economic growth, simply because we have the V-shaped curve. Sorry, V-shaped siya kasi bumagsak siya nung 2020 second quarter, if you can still remember that, bumagsak siya. Tapos, because of the sheer amount of resources employed, nag-V-shape siya, biglang tumama sa 2022. The economy will still, the simplest explanation there is that we are still getting growth contributions from, rising sectors such as services. And during the pandemic, agriculture was a surprise contributor. The problem is that, there's this issue on structural transformation. And let me just be quick about this. So the Philippines is now a service-oriented economy. We bypass industrialization, and then we are slowly creeping back to reignite it or restart it. So that's a big problem compared to other countries like Vietnam, for instance. They followed it. Through their Doi Moi program, they were able to transition properly from agricultural country, and then they industrialized, and then now they're even producing e-vehicles that are being sold in US markets. And of course, I think, Dr. Bersales mentioned about human capital. I also have something to say about that. And how can you deal with complexity if basic math, basic reading, you're having difficulty trying to overcome familiar problems? So that is a big issue. We're dealing with AI now. We're dealing with machine learning, robotics, automation. But then the skills needed, they have, we must have students who are able to appreciate how to link math to advanced knowledge. And we cannot do that if, you have 15-year-olds underperforming in assessments. So that's my take. Okay.
Marami pang tanong, pero before I involve the other disciplines, may sundot lang kay Ma'am Bersales kasi, so you have the political system and its dysfunctions. The social scientists are trying their best, and then you have a sense wherein there may be other ways to deliver the message, no matter how uncomfortable personally, but it has to go. And then you have the big picture wherein you have some things to deal with. There are some pluses and there are some minuses, but across those 55, 60 more decades of social science research, have the social scientists, young and old, maximize the data that we already have, or are not yet maximizing? What do you think, Madam? Since from your UP Stat days until the PSA.
I think I will be the more optimistic and positive voice in the room. I have been in academia, I have been in government, and what I see now is because of technology, data are more available. And because of a very strong, I would say that our Philippine statistical system is strong because it is independent. I would like to assure you that the government has no hand in the estimation of gross domestic product, inflation. And so the Philippine Statistics Authority releases these official statistics without any political intervention. And that is what we should be thankful for, that the Philippine statistical system has been maturing these many years and has really been very strong about what we call the United Nations Fundamental Principles of Official Statistics, where official statistics should be independent. And the authority that estimates GDP, inflation, labor force statistics, do the computations internally without any intervention from politicians. So with that, I would like to say that data are now very richly available in the Philippines. Of course, there are data gaps. There will always be data gaps. But we have the censuses done every 5 years. Some countries, they don't even do this every 10 years, which is the requirement. Here in the Philippines, we do every 5 years. Now, despite the pandemic, our labor force survey, which was before quarterly, became monthly. We now have the National Demographic and Health Survey done every 5 years. It will be done every 3 years. Family income and expenditure survey, before your estimates are only down to regional level, it's now provincial level. And all of these are fully funded by government. Other countries, they need the UNFPA to do the census. They need to get budget from other international agencies to do their censuses and surveys. We have all of our official statistics fully funded by the government. And so you have fully funded domestically data, official data, free from intervention. Of course, there were some instances of pwede bang tingnan muna namin at tingnan muna natin yung result. But we have been very clear about it. And the Philippine Statistics Authority Board is a very strong board that ensures that our official statistics are trusted. So, are the data fully utilized? Not yet, in my mind. But because of this empirical decision-making is now the catchphrase, I actually see during budget hearings that senators, sometimes Congress, but not always, because the House of Representatives, they are more parochial. They think only of their area of influence. But in the Senate, there is always question from government agencies presenting budgets. Oh, what are your accomplishments? What is your budget utilization rate? So there is now our politicians actually are being forced by us, and this is where we are. We have to force them to look at the data and to listen to the scientists. They are not yet fully there, so that is why we need to do it. But I'm seeing changes. I also now visit talaga municipalities on the ground. And I would like to tell you that there are now mayors that use data to make their decisions. This is good news for us. Of course, we do not have yet, how do you call it, hindi pa sila ganun karami. I forget the term now. Wala pa siyang turning point na magiging snowball effect na, no? Kasi there are still mayors who are not doing so. But I see governors, mayors, when I visit, they are now really looking at data. What particular data do we talk about when I visit? Population issues, unmet need of the women, or are they given family planning services? Teenage pregnancy is a really big discussion. And yung mga bata natin nang mawala sa school, especially the boys, they are out of school, and there's a longitudinal study by UNFPA, University of San Carlos, UPPI, that our children are not anymore dreaming big dreams. So wala na silang dream talaga tulad natin na ako noon gusto ko talaga maging teacher at nangyari nga, naging teacher ako. Mga kapatid ko gusto niya maging engineer, yung iba maging sila ngayon hindi TikTok na nga, yung mabilis na paghanap ng pera. So this is where we need to be really involved. How do we motivate our children to really dream more? But there's a study that really shows that the dreams of the children are correlated with the dreams of their parents. So merong mga mothers na wala na silang big dreams sa mga anak nila, na-translate sa mga bata. So we really have to work on the ground. We really have to go to where we need to go. Where are they? They are the provinces, the poorer provinces. They are the communities where you have women that are less educated. They are they are in BARM. BARM is still really something to worry about. And so these are where we need to go. Kasi we sometimes look at the big picture, but now the action that we need to do should be on specific municipalities, specific communities, and the women, the less educated women sila talaga. Statistics show that the women get higher education actually than the men. Mas maraming more higher education ng women, but they are not in the labor force. Only about 55% are in the labor force, men 70%. The men not so educated, kaya they are in elementary occupation, the men. Minimum wage occupation lang sila. The women with higher education, they could get more opportunities, but they don't work because they're in taking care of the children, unpaid care work. So policies that we need to influence will be government. Ano bang mga policy ang pwedeng nating maibigay doon sa mga kababaihan na highly educated, but they have to take care of their children? Anong mga opportunities sila? Nakikita ko they're actually in the gig economy. These women, they stay at home, but they work from home, they're in the gig economy, but they don't have social protection. And then there are women who actually already have their children in school so they can go back to work. But it's difficult for them to go back to the labor force after so many years of being out of it. So these are some of the policies that we need for the women. Women kasi talagang malaki na pag na-empower mo yung women, ang laki ng tulong sa ating bansa. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bersales, thank you. So far, if you look the policy relevance of the social sciences is very much evident, and there are now tips on how to speak, where to go.
Sorry lang, nakalimutan ko yung
Yes, Dr.
itong
Bersales.
very important na population group na pag-usapan natin, OFW families. We need to help the government think of how to, take care of them. Kasi maraming mga teenage pregnancies dito nanggagaling. So, just to alert us. Thank you po.
Right.
Sorry very much.
No worries,
Sorry for
ma'am.
interrupting you.
Okay, no worries. So the policy relevance is very evident, and I guess that's a tenet of Philippine Social Science Research. But before we go to the open forum, and with the permission of the Executive Director of the PSSC, I would like to ask some two guide questions, and you could have a little fast talk. Kasi there are other disciplines involved. Okay? So you might think that the talk is between and among the 4 disciplines concerned, but the PSSC is 15 disciplines. But my question is, and this is where I could start off with her, have the social scientists from the Philippines explored dealing with linguists, historians, anthropologists, so that the insights on the issues we think of become broader, and it leads to more, hopefully, insightful policy recommendations and new knowledge from a developing country like ours? Have we done that over the past few years, given your individual experience? Like, for example, have economists work with anthropologists? Have political scientists work with linguists? I don't know. Have the historians really dealt with demographers over these 55, 60 more years?
Not enough. Kulang pa. Bakit? We're so much in love with our disciplinary boundaries. Basta ako, ganito ako in my field. But sa totoo lang, it can be done. I work in a transdisciplinary teaching and research and public service department, the Department of Clinical Epidemiology. So I work with physicians, I work with clinical researchers, with health economists, with policy advocates. My partner, social scientist, is a clinical psychologist, and another one is a medical anthropologist. Pwede kung gusto. My chairman is a neonatologist. He takes care of very small babies who are in our neonatal intensive care unit. But he is also a clinical epidemiologist and an ethics expert. So that is what I mean, that I come from a department where it is actually expected that you go outside of your own disciplinary boundary. I have never done a project by myself in a long time. Probably the last one was my dissertation. It is always transdisciplinary. And that is the way to go because real life is interconnected. The economics, the politics, the history, the communication, the psychology. Sa totoong buhay, lahat yan ay marites. Lahat yan ay objects of study and objects of fascination. Tayo lang ang mahilig magkahon-kahon. Tayo lang ang maghilig mag-theorize. Pero sa totoo lang, ramdam lahat ng kalam ng sikmura, lahat yan. At the bottom of all of it, it's true life. And that's why I always say that Marites is life. Because that is where you find the real nuggets of wisdom from the men and women. I'm now doing an HIV/AIDS prevention project. So I work with LGBTQ communities. And we want to promote the use of pre-exposure prophylaxis and post-exposure prophylaxis. These are tablets you take to prevent HIV. We have the fastest growing HIV/AIDS epidemic in Asia Pacific. We are number 4 for pulmonary tuberculosis in the world. We are also, I think, number 7 or 8 in unvaccinated children. Plus, of course, our dismal scores on science, math, and reading. Bongga na naman uli ang Pilipinas. So napakadami nating problema na kailangan din natin magsama-sama. I'm asked, ba't hindi kayo kasali? Kasi hindi kami kinukumbida. So sometimes, kailangan din natin magmagaling at to offer our services. Miski sabihin, sino kayo? Kasama yun eh. Sino kayo? Anong pakialam nyo? Pilipino po ako. Isa akong mananaliksik na Pilipino. Isa po akong scientificong Pilipino. Pero ang hirap doon laging magmamagaling ka. Wala sa kultura natin yan eh. So, social scientists often do not get invited to the table. How do we get invited? We have to speak out more and be as noisy as we can. But as Dr. Dacuycuy said, there's a lot of difference in opinion, and that is why the social sciences are so vibrant. Because we don't speak with one voice. Remember, I prefaced my remarks by saying voices, not singular, plural. So there's more opportunity to work together, but we also need to network and get to know each other. Trust building is very much part of being a Filipino social scientist. You work with the same people. Because, alam ko na yung gamay ko na. Okay? Kakilala ka, palagayan loob ko na yung taong ito, so we can work together. So, I think PSSC, and this is something which is a challenge to PSSC, how do we get across different member associations and do a project together? Na kalimutan ako'y economist, ako'y sociologist, ako'y political scientist, ako'y statistician. We're all social scientists addressing issues. The National Social Science Congress, which we had, was a good start. And I think we should have it more often, actually. Kasi every 5 years is history already. Kailangan mas relevant tayo. And I think probably a yearly National Social Science Congress is called for. It's a good way to meet people. good way to present, good way to also debate. Salamat po. And train young people and meet young people and those who are pretending to be young too.
I'm sorry. Kayo po.
Just to add, it's high time really. We have all agreed. I've been in many forum talaga na we said, okay, let's work together. For me, no, we have to identify one area. Let's be very specific na. Let's go to one area. Let's go to one community. Let's go there together and let's see what happens. So that's my suggestion to Odette. Thank you.
I'll add more.
Yeah.
I'll complement the intervention so far. I dabble currently on disinformation research, but I don't know. I'm not a communication person. I'm not a sociology person. I'm not a psychology person. But this problem, and government seem to not even consider it a problem. But this, ano bang alam mo, di ba? And then the idea that I don't want to be a professional, I want to be an influencer because they earn so much more. Like when surveys like, what career do young people want? They want to become influencers. Like, they want to endorse products, they want to travel, they want to put up all these videos and that get monetized through social media. But I've seen existing studies on disinformation and it's always a multidisciplinary team. So my challenge is perhaps, what do we want to study as a group of social scientists? We study disinformation and fake news from all our lenses because I think it has a contribution also to the ongoing education crisis. Because why is there, it's the lack of critical thinking. And at the moment, and studies have proven this through certain experiments, fact-checking does not work. And even reinforces support, right? So for example, you have a politician who engages in disinformation, you present the supporters of that politician with fact check, they support the politician more after the fact checking. So fact checking does not even works the other way. It reinforces polarization and biases. So this, I think, is one of the challenges because a lot of the disinformation has also something to do with the knowledge that supposedly social sciences have established, history, even how political institutions work. Right? So I think a task force, a social science Avengers team of some sort, a task force on disinformation, because if not, then the Filipino youth will be forever vulnerable to such.
May I ask a question to Dr. Aries?
Yes.
Dr. Aries, have you mapped where this information happens?
That's geography.
Is there
That's geography.
if you studied politicians, mayors, governors, do you have a mapping of who these are who promote this information? Because as I've said earlier, when I visited on the ground, there are some of them who are actually really using data. So I'm interested, saan yung gumagamit ng data correctly, saan naman yung disinformation? Because this is related to my suggestion for us to identify where we go together. So do we go together to where disinformation most happens? Or do we go together to where you have a mayor or a governor who actually is already there using data, and we go there to reinforce? So these are actually questions maybe for later, but meron ka na bang ganong mapping?
I mean, the critical thing is that, and Jeremiah might want to dive here, is that there's been a change in the media landscape.
Oh yeah.
Right? Definitely. So media has totally changed to the point that everyone is a journalist now. No? And therefore but the existing studies on disinformation also point to the political economy if their products.
So do you have an idea where you have this usually happening? Do you have some data on that?
I mean, from the national to the local, it happens. sources also differ. Kaya nga tinawag tayo ni Maria Ressa na petri dish of disinformation, because we have state-sponsored, domestic sourced, and then external source. If you're talking about the narratives on the South China Sea dispute and the disinformation about that, that necessarily could come from external, not necessarily inside. The war on Ukraine and how the Philippines should stay neutral despite one country invading another, right? Nagulat kami lahat na dapat ang foreign policy ng Pilipinas neutral. Ang neutrality po, Switzerland. At pag sinabi pong neutral ang foreign policy, wala pong values yun. We have no opinion on anything. But when you see political scientists serving the government saying that, talagang mapapakamot ka sa ulo, parang, teka, mga prof ko to, bakit ganito yung sinasabi?
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I think that one is important, and I think the methodologies needed require machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's because you are sourcing your data from the internet, and you must automate it in such a way that on a real-time basis, the map will be shown, and then madaming marites dito, nagpapakalat. Parang ganon, no? Yeah, it's a fascinating area for social scientists to be in. It's because my realization is that I think social scientists partner with natural scientists more. It's because when they apply for projects, they will always be asked the following question: oh, where's your social scientist here? Where's your economist? Where's your historian? I remember there was a project that was deliberated, a proposal, and then it has something to do with the development of a local area. And then, of course, you have these environmental planners, scientists. They are not economists, but then they're talking about ecology. And then one of the panelists asked the question, oh, where are your economists? Where are your geographers? So you're talking about spillovers here, effects from that area to other areas, something like that. How will you measure those? So I think we really need to, I support the advocacy to create a super team in social science and then make our presence felt. I think PSSC can spearhead. Of course, we have different institutions or councils granting research funds to researchers. And my impression is that social science is becoming more and more indispensable. They need our perspective. How we bring ourselves known to them is, I think, one of the necessary functions of PSSC. It's because, you know, you cannot imagine, let's say, a technical person. I'm not going to refer specifically to the field, talking about a social issue, and his background is into the hardcore sciences. so it's really important. It's because the perspective that we bring to the table is very different. You're talking about social dynamics. They know dynamics as far as their disciplines are concerned, but how do they interpret social dynamics? How do they interpret the societal value of what they're working on? So I think that, you know, there's I think medyo optimistic din tayo kapag ganun yung situation. It's because we know something that they don't. Of course, that's mutual. They know a lot that we don't know about. Okay, but then there must be a way for us, for social science, to to meet with other scientists.
Which leads me to the final set of questions before we go to the open forum, because they were saying something about being avengers for the social sciences. So avengers have superpowers. For social scientists, and I'm talking to the students here who are doing their thesis, it's methods. But here's my question. Ladies and gentlemen in the room, you have 2 quant and 2 qual people. Okay? And in the history of methods, and I'm a mixed methods person, by the way. I've been doing mixed methods with economists for 10 years. And when these quant and quant people talk things, it's like Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. They won't stop. It's irreconcilable. But that was so 1990s, and the methods worldwide have evolved. And yet you have some disciplines, they don't know what to talk with the qual. The others, they don't want to talk with the quant. But you want to undiscipline, you want to talk about the problems of today, bringing your superpowers with you, but are you willing to listen to the linguist, to the methods of the historian? You have and I'll share an example with the indulgence of the PES president here, the International Economics Association president, Danny Roderick, 2 years ago, he said, the economy should do more qual. And you have that statement from the top economists in the world, and definitely the economists will get rattled. Why is this guy talking about something that we're not so used to doing? But what about the qual? Are you ready to listen to the quant? So, therefore, in the future of the social sciences, are you ready to really put your methodological acts together and learn from each other, like using discourse analysis or whatever methods from history or whatever regression technique that is available now on the table, geographic information systems, mapping? Are you excited for those things? Should we make these young people excited about these methodological mixtures in the social sciences? And then that would end it.
Academic. Okay, so I've been teaching for a while, and then we're handling thesis writing students. You know, they can produce papers that are technical, but they don't make any sense. You know, they put forward a theory, and then without investigating what's happening on the ground. And then when we ask them, can you give us a face of what you're referring to? Oh, we don't know. We just have this theory. We have the data. And then, you know, I think that if you ask me, I'm a believer of mixed methods. Of course, there are disciplines in economics that are, you know, that require the highest statistical or econometric standards possible. But then, you know what? We have this project on labor force participation. And then when we submitted the report, what they suggested was really shocked us. So they said, okay, we know all about this. They are just from usual sources. From the data, you have this LFS. You're able to get the labor force. But then what's happening on the ground? So that's the reason why you have to incorporate mixed methods as part of your framework. And that is something that I really would like to emphasize to students here. I emphasize it to my students before, that when you have a topic, of course, you have the first instinct is for you to establish feasibility. But what's important, more important, is that it should reflect reality. Kasi mga ekonomista po, mahilig kami mag-model. Hindi yung rumarampa basta nagmo-model ka sa... And these are usually difficult stuff. They don't make sense to other people. And then we usually learn it the hard way. Just one question. Oh, what's the relevance of your work? You cannot say that, oh, this is the best model possible. No, you cannot say that. And let me just, since we're talking about social issues, development issues, there's one institution in the Philippines, PIDS. I don't remember if they produce a paper that don't deal with mixed methods because they will be outrightly dismissed. Kapag panay model yan, panay numbers yan, you have a policymaker, okay, so hindi maintindihan. So they have to, to produce something that will appeal to lay persons, to those who don't, a lot of people, they don't want math. So that is something that you may want to focus on, so for the students.
Up to Aries, and then we'll have to open for
Just like Dr. Jeremiah, I also use multi-methods and mixed methods. I am not very good at numbers, but I love our 3 biostatisticians. I work with some of the country's best biostatisticians and some of the best health economists. So what do? Kapatid, upo ka nga dito, paliwanag mo nga sa akin kung ano bang ibig sabihin nito. Ganun lang ang conversation. Or sila, Nins, anong tingin mo dito? It's those kinds of conversations which are very important. You do not have to be ashamed to show your ignorance or lack of appreciation. But you should be open to saying, pakipaliwanag mo nga sa akin ito. Or when we're writing something together, can you write the quanti part and put it in some statistical language? para correct ang interpretation, or pakitingnan mo nga itong draft na sinulat ko, tama ba ang aking pagkakasulat? Ganun din naman sila. So it's a matter of mutual respect, learning each other's language, admitting to, sorry, hindi ko naintindihan ito, layman's language, please. And that's also what they do with the clinicians I work with. Everybody who comes with some exotic disease, Doc, nakakamatay ba ito? Mahal ba ito? Nagagamot ba ito? Ano bang mangyayari sa akin kung ako may sakit nito? Explain it to me. So that kind of conversation has to be coming from honesty and also some naivete. And also openness to listen and to learn. Ay, ganun pala yun. Salamat ha. So ako, I don't have to learn more than enough of the quantity because I know that I can dial a friend. And that is very important. So sa akin, I work with some of the best biostatisticians in the country. So kampante ako na any humps and bumps in the modeling, I can also dial my economist friend. Na bakit ko pa aaralin pa lahat yun? Ito lang ang gusto ko. So openness also to reaching out across the aisle and saying, pakituro mo naman sa akin ito at hindi ko naintindihan ito. So, meron din intellectual humility. Salamat.
I'm really for mixed methods. No, we have to have the numbers, but we have to have faces to the numbers. So, I'm really a user of mixed methods. Thank you.
Very quickly, I mean, I teach research methods classes, but I always advise my students that the research question always precede the method. And the lost art in political science, and this is sad, is that you really have methodologically sound studies in political science journals, but they fail in my regard with the so what test, right? But how do you, what kind of questions you ask matters for me more than the methods that you use. And I always tell my students that don't be afraid to pursue your passion in pursuing your political science projects. My MA thesis was because it came from the lived experience of attending the only protest rally that I ever attended as a UP student, and that was EDSA DOS. I thought that, we rescued democracy. And then all of a sudden, after a few months, I said, wait a minute. It seemed that we have jumped the gun, like we did not finish the impeachment process. We went out in the streets. We invited the military to intervene. And because of that, from 2001 to 2010, that was our democracy's lost decade. Nothing happened politically and even economically beneficial. All we had were failed coups, protests, trying to unseat one president to the other, hello Garci, and until now, that original sin of EDSA DOS, we are still feeling the political consequences of that. So please pursue what you want to study. If you don't know, you can ask your professors, but pursue the research projects that pull your heartstrings.
Wow, can we give them a round of applause? Round of applause.